Welcome to the Billable Mom podcast, led by attorney Cari Rincker, where we discuss working motherhood, but especially geared to professional mothers who are trying to juggle their time. Our time is precious, both at work and at home. We talk time management and productivity hacks, the struggles of being a working parent, and provide a community where other billable moms are also trying to calm the chaos 6 minutes at a time. Listen to stories of other working moms, but especially lawyer moms. Navigate the waters balancing career and the ever-present demands of motherhood.
Hi, I'm Cari Rincker. I'm the Billable Mom, and we've got Drew Hickey in the house. And Drew, I believe that we met in around 2020 when COVID hit. We were working on quadros or quildros together, sort of like a post-divorce retirement stuff. And that's how I met you.
That's right.
We're kind of in an estate planning mastermind group. I don't know if it's a mastermind in the traditional sense, but we've gotten to know each other that way. So why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners? Tell us about you, where you are in your career, and your path to being a billable mom.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Drew Hickey. I've been practicing law in Decatur, Illinois for about 14 years. This will be year 14 this year. So I've started with family law because it's the easiest way, I think, to start. There's a lot of that kind of business. So I started with that and then have just shifted after having kids to trying to do more estate planning, like you said. Along the way, I picked up a pretty strong adoption practice, and I love to practice adoption law. So, and then probate and guardianships as well, just kind of picked up those and enjoy those. So kept going with them.
That's awesome. So Drew, I'd love to just back up a little bit and talk about where you were with your first pregnancy. So why don't we just go back in time and tell us where you were and how things like happened after you had your first child?
Sure. So let's see. My husband and I, when the whole time I was pregnant with my first child, so she was born in January 2018, and her name's Elizabeth, and we got pregnant with her about a year and a half after we got married. And I was, at that time, I would say pretty heavy into family law mostly. I did have a guardianship practice. I did guardianships. I had a client who helped kind of pro bono, but they paid me fees for guardianships for minor children. So I was doing a lot of those, a lot of family law, a few wills here and there. And so then my husband and I had her, and we moved actually from where we were living at the time to our new house while we were in the hospital. So we thought the moving day was like the 9th, and she was due on the 10th of January. And I assumed that I would go late because it was my first pregnancy, and that was a really wrong assumption. So the movers actually came, and our parents coordinated the move while we were in the hospital.
So tell me about how you navigated your first maternity leave. How long did you take?
So I took 9 weeks, maybe 8.5 or 9. And, as an attorney, the way my firm works is, you're working or you're not working. And so you're making money or you're not making money. I have a short-term disability policy, so I was able to take the short-term disability for maternity leave. So I did get a supplement to my income there, but kind of felt like, it's hard to put things on pause for 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. Luckily, I have, great support in my partners. I was able to, I was either tell clients, hey, I won't be back. I won't be able to handle things until I get back. Or I was able to tell some of my, clients, or not clients, but some of my partners about the matter and kind of get them up to speed so they could answer phone calls and questions while I was gone. So I was able to be pretty flexible.
So tell me about you just have your first kid, you are done with your maternity leave, and you're back to the office, probably a little off balance, at least I was. So tell me how that transition went for you.
Yeah, it was really hard, emotionally really hard. Also physically, because I was breastfeeding. So, I brought my pump in and set it up at my desk. And I had a sign, sometimes even when you put a do not disturb sign on your door, people still come in. Mm-hmm. So I put a sign that said, I am breastfeeding. So not breastfeeding, but pumping. So do not come in here. And so I pumped, and, it was hard. Luckily, we have my husband's parents live here in town, and my parents live here in town. So the first day I went back, I went back, I think, a couple of half days. The first week, I kind of started like on a Wednesday and just went a couple of half days to get emails sorted and just kind of come back part-time. And my mom watched her those days. So her house is kind of near my office. And obviously it was my mom, so I trusted her. So it was really hard to leave, but I kind of eased back in as best as I could.
Well, so, and I know that we had talked about this a little bit prior to today, but, it is so hard to be a working professional and then lactating at the same time. And, I felt like my office wasn't even like thinking about the fact that I needed to take breaks in the middle of the day, a couple of those. And so, like, how did you sort of navigate that?
So I am pretty sure that I put pumping on my calendar because I knew that I was going to need a break, a bathroom break and then a pump break. So I kind of just scheduled them at the same time as much as I could, and just tried to take it easy. It's so funny. Your memory of it kind of goes. It's like it's so intense. And then when it's over, it's like you don't remember everything. But I remember, sitting and, pumping in the morning. And then on my lunch break, I would just sit at my desk and do that. And then in the afternoon. So I had about 3. And then I also bought a fridge to keep in my office so I could keep the milk in the fridge until I took it home.
So how long at that point in time, you were still doing a lot of litigation? Is that right?
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
So how did you navigate sort of, childcare pressures and like litigation and all the pressures that come along with that? I mean, I had to spend last Sunday here because I was prepping for a hearing, and, and I hate that because I was away from my family. So tell me how you navigated those challenging waters.
Yeah, there were some late nights. Actually, on the pumping side of it, there was a day where we had a full day trial, and it was in Sangamon County. So I wasn't near my office. I had to take my pump with me, and I forgot to bring the it's uncomfortable, everything gets heavy and you start to leak, and, we're in this trial all day, and it was me and another attorney. So I wasn't like the first chair attorney on that one, but still had to be in trial, still talking to the clients and all that. So I took my pump with me, and actually it's really nice. A lot of the courthouses, you've probably noticed, Cari, in Central Illinois area have lactation rooms now. Which is really great. I don't think there was one, or at least I didn't find it in Sangamon County, but I had forgotten my plug-in. So I had to go out to my car anyway and use my car adapter to pump. So I did that. That was, it was just difficult, but you get it done because you have to. In terms of time management, I think, I'm lucky. My husband, of course, is very supportive, and we have grandparents that are very supportive. So, but there have been times where I've had to hire, because the grandparents do a lot of the day-to-day, it's kind of hard to tap on them on the weekends for childcare. So there have been times I've had to hire, if my husband was busy. He's actually finishing up law school. He graduates tomorrow. So if there were times where he couldn't watch the kids and I needed to work, sometimes we've had to hire nannies to come in, take care of them during the day. That's kind of my least favorite way to do it, but sometimes you have to do it. My husband had night classes usually every semester, except for this first year. So, I'd have to pick the days that he didn't have his night classes. So he would stay home late with the kids and do dinner, and I would just work that evening. So usually evenings, and then one weekend day, I was doing that. I'm trying not to, and I'm really, really like putting my foot down on getting away from that at this point, because the kids are bigger and they've got a lot more going on. So I'm really trying to get away from that. But part of what I do for time management is it's actually a practice called Monday Map, Friday Wrap. And a coach named Melissa Shanahan teaches it. And it's planning your week before and, planning it on a Friday and knowing what's going to happen the next week. And, it doesn't go perfectly, but it does really help cut down on the stress because I kind of know what's coming. And Sunday, I'm not just going through my checklist in my head. It's kind of like I've figured it out already. It won't be perfect, but some things will get done anyway.
So walk me through that process because in theory, I'm trying to do the same thing. I have my staff trying to do like a weekly calendar audit, but there's always little things that are difficult to really think through. Like, for example, I was thinking through my next week and I'm bringing my daughter back from a medical appointment. And then, I noticed that there wasn't enough time, between that and the client appointment. And so are you walking through like every day of the week and just making adjustments? Are you sticking in like, I know that I need to work on this motion or this estate plan in there too?
Yes. Yeah. So what you do, it's about a 8 or 9 step process, but what we do is you start by looking at your calendar and just anything that's not supposed to be there, you take it off. Anything that, is just a recurring thing that shouldn't be there. Just the idea is to not have things take up space in your brain and not spend time on them the following week. So you take everything off. And then you add in things like, for example, travel time in between your daughter's appointment and the client appointment. Mm-hmm. And, and for me, a lot of it is I'll go to the appointment, but then I have to take them back home to the nanny or take them to the grandparents. So you need that time. So you're not rushing around. So you build that in. And then, if you need time to prep for the client or whatever, you build that in too. So then you put those times on and then you really see what's left over. And that's been my favorite part of the process is it's such a light bulb moment when you're like, okay, I only have 4 hours, or I only have 2 hours on this day because I've got client appointments and then I've got a couple hours and then I've got court. So it helps frame things because what I used to do is I would just say, oh, I'll do it on Monday. I'll do it on Monday. Monday would come and I'd have a to-do list that was as long as my arm.
Right. Yeah.
I could only get 3 or 4 things done because everybody calls on Monday too. So between your calls and everything else. So then I would feel like such a failure because I didn't get it all done, but it was never realistic to start with. So that's what you do. You build in your travel time, you build in, buffer time too, so that if clients call in the middle of when you're supposed to be working on a motion, you don't answer the phone. You call them back because you've got time from 4:30 to 5 that you're returning phone calls. So it really helps. As I said, I've never had a perfect week. I've never, it's not going to go perfectly, but if I know that I've got time for things and I'm realistic about how long it's going to take, at least I can get through a good chunk of my list and feel productive.
I love that. I just feel like one of the challenges that I have is that there's just so much time that's required for client communication, right? Client meetings, client emails, things along those lines that it's difficult for me to do lawyer work. And I can only speak for myself, but I feel like I need quiet concentration time to do deep thinking time to do real lawyer work. And like, you just don't get that if you're like in your inbox or like the phone is ringing. So you kind of have to plan for it.
And I have what's called kind of the basis of the whole thing is I have what's called my ideal schedule. And, so I have appointments scheduled Monday afternoon and Thursday afternoon. And that's it. Again, it's not perfect, but the other thing, it helps my staff know, okay, this is when her block is, this is when she's available. This is when she's like emotionally ready for appointments and, ready to focus on that. And then on Tuesdays, all of Tuesday, I have no client appointments at all because Tuesday is my work day. Like Tuesday's the day I come in and I shut my door and I get my work done as best I can. Sometimes that's emails, some, drafting. The other thing I try to do is batch things. So if I'm doing estate planning, it goes a lot faster if I do all of my estate planning stuff because my brain is in that mode instead of trying to monkey my brain from this adoption because it's just, your brain is just in a certain place and you can just stay there and just put your head down and get through it rather than trying to do different things at different times. So Yeah. And I also try to stay out of my email as much as possible, unless it's like scheduled time that I'm actually looking at it.
I love that you're having a dedicated day for work, because what has happened to me is I've tried, everything I just like is trial and error. I've tried to dedicate like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday mornings to focused work time. But, I feel like my staff are having a hard time, getting a client in. I'm like, stick them in there. And it's so hard for me to like stick to it. So what are your suggestions there?
I think you just really have to hold the boundary and think of yourself as not available. That's really what I do. I mean, again, it's not perfect. Sometimes that's the only time somebody can meet, or it's time sensitive and I have to get to them before Monday because it's a GAL report or something. So, it doesn't always work. It's not always perfect. Actually, what I find happens is I schedule my own doctor's appointments on Thursday or Tuesday mornings because I know I'm free. Yeah. So then, so it's not perfect, but I think for me, you just really have to hold the boundary. And I like the days when I just have work. I mean, I really love those.
They are my favorite days. Yeah. I mean, like like I remember like if I had like a trial that got vacated, it's like a whole day reserved and like it goes off the calendar. It's like my favorite day. So
time to get caught up. And so I like that feeling when I come in the morning of like, I know that I've got my water, I've got my tea, like I'm ready to be a machine getting all this stuff out as much as I can. And so I find that because I like it, I try to protect it more.
That's great advice. Let's talk a little bit about email and then we'll shift gears because I know we're on the other side of things. And, like I said, that we're in an estate planning group together. Like you are very communicative on email. Like I'm a little jealous because as I sit here recording this podcast, I'm very behind on my email right now. So tell me, like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So I kind of just have developed this system over my whole career, probably. One thing is I happen to just be a really fast typer. So it's easy for me to like just type and then, send it. Also, I think the emails in our group, generally are shorter, even if we're asking each other questions, they're kind of shorter answers. So they're easier for me to get out. So I try to keep my inbox, less than 10 unread messages. And the unread messages are things that I haven't responded to, or they're documents that I need for something else so that it kind of reminds me of the project that I've got. So that's the way I do it. I'm on my phone probably too much responding to email, but I feel like if it's something small, or something that I know off the top of my head, I just try to respond as quickly as possible to get it out of my inbox so that I can keep that number down. Because when that number gets 25, 30, it's so overwhelming and it's just not what my goal is.
I don't even want to tell you what my number is right now. So.
Yeah, no, I can't. And sometimes it's as simple as, forwarding it to my assistant to save the attachments to the file or something like that. So it's not always huge, but I'm sorry, let me get out of that. So it's just the system that I've developed. And when I've, been told, or advised to do different things and I hear different, methods for your inbox and all this, I'm just like, you know what, this works for me. It's muscle memory. It's always worked, and it's maybe not the best or most efficient way, but it works for me.
So I've obviously been struggling with this, but I did take a class on Inbox Zero, and it was interesting that you said like 10 emails or something. They basically said 20 emails or less they would consider that Inbox Zero. Oh. So I mean, of course, the ultimate goal would get to email inbox zero every single day, but I am trying to hit it at least on a weekly basis, Yes. But unfortunately, that means I'm spending a lot of my weekends, if I'm not able to make time during the week, getting email dealt with. I actually have a Cari to do folder. So, I mean, in my mind, like a lot of emails are like to-dos, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to stick them in a to-do, but then they're kind of out of sight, out of mind. So I do not have any of the answers with this at all.
Yeah, that's why I don't like when I put something in a folder, it is out of sight, out of mind. And I'll do that a lot with like, I'll see a CLE that comes across. I'm like, okay, this is something that I'd like to learn. Sometimes I leave it in my inbox because it bugs me so much until I do it. Like, I know if it's really important, then it's in my work email. Like, that's like where my important stuff is. And I leave it open until it's done. And then other times I'll have it in there for 2 weeks and I'll just be like, well, I'm not getting to this. So then I put it in like an education folder or, whatever folder. So I do have folders for things to live in when I'm not, and when they're basically done or they don't need immediate attention. So like resources or, if I get recipes or something or things to do with the kids' school, I'll read them and then just put them in there for reference later.
Yeah, that's great. So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about like the emotional toll that it is, when you leave home and your kids are crying for you, or for me, it's like my son is like begging me to take him to school and like I can't because I have an 8:30 court appearance. So tell me how you're navigating those issues.
So it does get easier. My oldest is 6 and my youngest is 4 now. So actually today my youngest had a family visit day at school. So I went to her school and spent the day with her in her class, or the hour with her in her classroom, and then took her home. On the way home, she said, I said, well, do you want a snack when you get home? She said, no, okay. And I said, I told her that her nanny would be there, and she's like, no, I want you to stay home. I don't want you to go to work. And, luckily, those used to be the clinging, crying, awful. It's gotten better. When we got home, she got out her scooter. It's a beautiful day. So she got her scooter out and the nanny watched her with her scooter. And so she was just like, bye, Mom. And so it does get easier. But honestly, like there were times when I would leave, we'd had an in-home daycare there for a while, and I'd leave my oldest there when she was just a baby, and you could just hear her just screaming, and you'd shut the door and she'd just be screaming. And, you just have to keep going. But because there were times I just wanted to quit. I was just like, I don't care. I'll quit. I won't show up for that court appearance. I won't, I'm just not going to do it. But then I don't know, for me, I just look at the bigger picture and realize that they'll be okay. And, they get better a few minutes after you go. And it's just, but it really doesn't make it any easier. I think there have just been times when I've been telling myself, just one foot in front of the other, just push yourself. So it is really, really hard. And I think one way that I kind of tried to start explaining it to my daughter when she started getting older, my oldest, is, I'd say, look, I have to go see the judge. And if I don't get there, the judge is going to be really mad at me. And so whenever I would leave for a while, she would say, Mommy, are you going to see the judge? And so,
that's sweet.
Yeah.
I try to tell my son that I'm helping people, that, and I need to go help, and I'll maybe make up a name or somebody else like that. And then, he'll come back and it's like, well, how's Kaylee? How did you help Kaylee today? So, at any rate, but it's difficult. It's so hard. And I know like that we've talked about this in the past, that there are some days where I feel like waving the white flag of surrender. Like maybe I'm just not meant to be a working mom, and maybe I should just like stay home with my kids. So have you ever had those moments?
Oh yeah. I mean, all the time. I mean, the nice thing about probably, I don't know if your office is like this, but my office is, I set my own schedule. So the nice thing about it, and what I remind myself all the time, is that it is flexible. Like today we had family visit day and I was able to go. I had myself marked out. It was what it was. I was able to go. So it is flexible, and that is a perk because I can be there for most things. I can be there for most of their parties and most of their doctor's appointments and things like that. So it's a trade-off. I mean, I would love it if I could stay home. Part of me knows that honestly, I don't know how long I could really stay home, because I do like, coming to work, being productive, helping people. That's the whole thing of why I do what I do. So I don't know if I could really stay home, but there's certainly been days when I've just wanted to give it all up and stay home.
Yeah. And I reflect back early on to the infancy of my law practice. And I remember specifically telling people that, I'm so excited to be self-employed because, if I have a family one day, if I want to only have a part-time law practice, I can do that. But it's easier said than done. I mean, here I'm like 15 years into my law practice and, and I can't just all of a sudden one day wake up and say, I'm only going to work 20 hours a week. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on that topic.
Yeah, no, it's very true. And that's, last year was, a kind of a bad example of trying to do that. I had switched to estate planning because I thought from litigation, it would be a lot less stress, a lot less, trial prep and debt prep and all of that. But I still had, so I was trying to learn a whole new practice area and I still had lingering litigation. I still had family law that was going on. I had a client who called me for a maintenance issue. I had a really big custody issue. These things kept going despite me wanting to eventually. You can't just shut it off. It's hard to just say, okay, especially a client you've had a long time. It's hard to say, no, I'm not going to help you with that. So it's hard. So I would usually work late on Tuesdays until 7 or 8 o'clock. And then I would usually come in, at 9 or 10 on Sunday and work till 5. My kids stop napping at 5. So I would try to be home by 5 or 5:30 on Sundays and have that time. So it's very, very difficult. I think, when you've got a practice area and people call, part of it is you just want to help them. You want to say yes, and you want to get them in and you want to help them and do what you can do. So it is very hard. And I've just had to be really trying to be mindful of my workload to where it's too much. And I still don't know. I don't know if you do it by number of cases, if you do it by complexity of cases. It's so hard. And, so I still struggle with it. I still have tons to do and not enough time to do it. But this weekend is Mother's Day. I'm not going to work Mother's Day,
Yeah. And sadly, I am probably going to work on Mother's Day because I just feel so behind and I don't know what else to do. And so I think that these are just hard, things to be in. Drew, let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsor. When we get back, I'd like to talk about childcare.
Okay, great.
This episode of the Billable Mom podcast is brought to you by Rincker Law PLLC, focusing in food, farm, and family. When I'm not a mother juggling 2 littles, I'm the principal attorney of Rincker Law, where we believe that strong communities have both strong families and a food, fiber, and agriculture system. At Rincker Law, not only do we do family and matrimonial law, but we also work with entrepreneurs and agriculture producers on business, estate, and succession planning. We are a client-focused, results-driven law practice. At Rincker Law, we also support other billable moms, not only here in the workplace at Rincker Law, but also with clients, helping them live their dreams both in business and at home. For more information, visit us at www.rinkerlaw.com. Cari Rincker, Rincker Law, Food, Farm, and Family. All right, Drew. So it sounds like you've had over the years a lot of help from, both you and your husband's parents, or the grandparents, and so to speak. But so how did you navigate childcare this whole time? Like, it sounds like there's been a little bit of everything.
Yes. So when I started, I want to say when we first started and my oldest was a really teeny tiny baby for about the first 9 months to a year, my husband's mom was doing 4 days a week and my mom was doing 1 day a week. So it was great because it was grandparents all that time. But then, understandably, my mother-in-law was like, I have my own life. I have appointments and things I need to do. And it was too much. So we went down to my mom always having Fridays and then my mother-in-law doing 2 or 3 days a week. So there were 2 days a week that we needed covered. And it's hard. It's hard to find. At first, we were lucky because we had an in-home daycare. I didn't want to put my baby, who was still probably 11, 12, maybe 13 months, into a daycare. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but you can't get into a daycare. So I was actually on a list for a daycare. I think I called when she was around a year, and it took another 1.5 years before she could even be in the daycare because she was on the waiting list that long.
Yeah, I don't. First, let's take a pause on that because I don't understand. I feel like, so I've been on wait lists for daycares, and then the minute that you are in, maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 6 months, whatever it is, they expect for you to like literally drop everything and to have your kid there on Monday.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like an unbelievable pressure. I don't know. It's just so weird. And then there's a daycare around here at Montessori, and I really wanted to have Jason in there, and they told me 1.5 years wait. I'm like, what is this? I'm making alternative plans. So I don't know what the deal is with daycare and why it feels so difficult to get in. And then once you do, it's like a lot of pressure to reorganize your life. So I don't know. Any thoughts there on that?
Yes, I think there's just such a need and there aren't enough daycare centers. I mean, we have and trusted daycare centers too. I know they have a very high regulatory structure. So they have, so many teachers they have to have, and they have so many, they have to be certified by DCFS and meet all of these criteria. So I think that's very hard to do. So I just don't think there are enough. And they're private too. I know in other countries, it's public run daycare. So you have maybe not as many daycares as there are kids, but it's a whole lot more. Whereas, until they're in kindergarten, you've got from 1 to 5 or from 0 to 5 to try to figure out who's going to watch your kids while you're working. So, that's really hard. So we were able to find somebody where it could be an at-home. It was an at-home. She had actually another kid that was one of my partner's children. So kind of had the same schedule, and it was on the way home from work. So it worked out. But again, leaving her there was really tough. And then we started to look into having nannies, and we actually were really lucky. We had one good one. She was a college student at Millikan for about a year. And so she stayed a little over a year. And actually it was after a trial. I was down in Douglas County on a trial. She called me and said, "Hey, I got a job in my major and I'm leaving." And so I had this big 3-day trial, and then I had this call, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So, luckily the trial was over, but so that happened. And then it got to be, and so then COVID happened. So then we finally got her into, my oldest into daycare. And if the oldest is in daycare, then the youngest is kind of grandfathered in as well. So we were planning on doing that when we had the baby, and then COVID hit and everything shut down. So 6 weeks before I was due with my second, COVID happened. And I think after a few weeks, we could have sent Elizabeth back. But of course, we were scared and about to have a newborn, and we didn't want her going to daycare. So we paid for our spot, even though she wasn't there, I think, until for like 3 or 4 months. And then finally, we just realized, we're not going to do this. So we gave up our spot. So then we had nannies. It was kind of like every semester, we'd have somebody from college come, and they would do it, and then they would leave. And that's not at all what I would have envisioned. I would have wanted one person to do it the whole time, but it's hard. It's hard to fill 2 days. It's not full time. So, but I wanted the grandparents to still be there because to me that was really important. So that relationship was important. So then we had nannies, and then when they started to go to school, Elizabeth's in kindergarten now. Last year, we put them on the list for the daycare again to be on the school age. And it may have been 2 years ago because we had to wait like 2 school years. And we finally got the call. And you're right. It's like a fire drill. We got the call. They're in for the fall. Bring us all your paperwork. Fill out this 20-page thing and read all this stuff and get us their physicals and get us their dental exams. And, so, and then it's a fire drill. So I ran in there, we had to talk to the grandparents and make sure they were okay with it. So I ran in there. I paid my deposit. It's like, oh my gosh. So I think finally they will go to a daycare that can bus them to and from school starting in August. So
what a luxury. Wow.
We're really excited. But for some reason, they had a spot for Elizabeth in the summer, but they didn't have a spot for Audrey. So we still had to work through summer because obviously it didn't make sense to send one and then pay for a nanny for the other. So we're just waiting till fall.
So talk to me about also like your transitioning from work mode work lawyer mode to mommy mode, right? So how are you navigating that?
So it was really tough at first. You get highly stressed. You're stressed. You're, worried about this case. You're worried about these clients. So I really struggled at first, probably the first couple of years of Elizabeth's life, with trying to shut off my lawyer persona and be a mom. And so I just really, I don't know if I heard this. I think I heard it in a podcast or something when I was seeking answers on it of, when you're at work, you're at work. And when you're at home, you're at home. Like, because, home is like another job. You go there and you start your other job. You've got dinner, you've got hugs and cuddles, and, it's very enjoyable job, but it's still responsibility and you have to be present there. So I just really try to just be present. So when I'm at work, I'm at work. I mean, I take breaks to like look at my kids' pictures and stuff like that. Or if they're school calls or something, of course, I'm available for that. But when I'm at work, I try to just be at work. And then I have about a 20-minute drive home. So I listen to a podcast or music or something that's just relaxing to me and have my kind of me time. And then when I get home, it's home. I try not to look at my email. And if I do look at my email, I try to not let it upset me. Or stress me out or get me riled up. It's kind of just like, sometimes you just muscle memory, look at the email, and then I'm just like, that's not for right now. This is right now. I have to, look at my child and interact with my child. And I don't want to be on my phone and distracted all the time. So it's just sacrosanct time.
So you put the kids to bed, and then are you out for the night, or are you then working a little bit afterwards?
Yes, I've tried to work after the kids go to bed and I'm exhausted. There's no way.
Yeah.
My mind's not in a good spot, and I'm not good at making decisions, and I'm exhausted. So I've just started to where I put the kids to bed and I go to bed. Now that they're on a pretty good schedule, I usually have about an hour from 9 to 10 or 10:30 when I can do things on my phone and, listen to a book or play games or whatever relaxes me. So, no, that's really my time. And then I get up at 6 and take a shower and then get them ready for school and go to work.
So I know we're a little short on time, but I do want to talk about health, because I feel like this has been such a problem for me, like during these years, that like I feel like my time is so limited. And like, for example, tonight I'm going to be taking my child to swimming lessons. It's going to be all I can do to figure out a way where I personally can like swim laps myself. I'm like determined to make it happen tonight. But I mean, how are you navigating that and your own need for health and wellness?
Yeah, it's really hard. So for a couple of years after I had Audrey, I was on a pretty strict diet, and it was low calorie. It was like protein bars, and it was a program, and it was very strict, and they sent you the products. And so I was able to lose the baby weight. I was able to get down to my wedding weight. But then as soon as I got down to that weight, I was like, well, that's done. And I went back to eating the foods that I like to eat. And so now I'm trying to make it more realistic, with being able to eat what I want, but maybe not as big of portions, and cycling in fruits and vegetables. And so that's where I'm at with it. I'm trying to also navigate physical, activity, because I love to run. That was one thing I always loved to do before kids, is I love to run or just go on a walk and listen to music and have your own time. And so one thing that a friend and I did, we're neighbors, and we had weekly walks. So we would get up, and it was before all the kids got up, and we'd go on walks together for about 45 minutes. And she's actually expecting another baby in June. So with the weather and with the timing of the baby, we haven't done it quite as much, but that's one way. And then the other way is trying to do my own workout for about a half an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour in the morning. And then when my daughter comes downstairs, she has what are called brain breaks. And if anybody has school age kids, they've probably heard of that, but they're like YouTube videos, and they encourage kids to get up and jump and, run around. And so they'll have like themes, like at Christmas, there was a Grinch one, and so you're like running from the Grinch, and then you're going downhill in the sled, and it encourages like jump and duck and move around. And so it's just another 15-minute way and she loves it. She loves doing it with me because she's used to doing it at school with her friends. So we do that, and it gets your heart rate up, and it's something you can incorporate your kids in.
That's awesome. So in close, I'm curious if there have been any products or books or any just like last pieces of advice that have helped you in your working motherhood journey.
Yes, definitely. So one little hack that I really recommend is turning off all notifications. I hate notifications because I want to get on it right away, and I want to respond. And so I turn off all of my email notifications. I never get an email notification like sound, and text notifications and phone calls on my cell phone. I have it off all the time. So that has brought me a lot of peace. And then for a product, I use Asana. It's called ASANA, and it is like a to-do list Kanban board type of. It's on a website. It's web-based, and you go in there. And so if you have a thought, or because I used to always write things out and all these lists, and then make new lists. And so anyway, now I can just move things from day to day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If it's stuff for the weekend, I can put it on the weekend. If I think about something, I can open it up in my phone or open it up on my browser and just type it in, and then push it to another list, like something to look at or something I'm waiting on. And it just helps me feel sane because I know that it's somewhere for later. And then it helps me organize when I plan my week. I can say, okay, here's what I'm going to do on Monday. Here's what I'm going to do on Tuesday. Here's what I'm doing. So Asana is, I think it's $25 a month or something, but it has really just helped me know where all of my tasks are.
Wow. So that is so time perfect for me because I actually just signed up for a Asana subscription yesterday.
Oh, nice.
I read the book Come Up for Air by Nick Sonnenberg, and I'm actually part of the Leverage training program, and he is like a big Asana person. And I feel like I was having like celebrity, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm having to Zoom with Nick Sonnenberg himself. And he was basically like telling me that that I need to stop emailing my staff back and forth internal emails, right? And then to use Asana, because it sounds like Asana, you can communicate things under tasks. So I don't know if you work with Asana with your legal assistant at all, but I think that there's a way to also like have some internal communication with Asana. So I'm in the process of trying to get set up for me. So I might be like, Drew, I need all the tips on another day. So
yeah, and I don't use it with my staff. It's just me right now, but it does help me a lot.
Oh, cool. Well, Drew, thank you so much for coming to the podcast today. So where can our listeners find you?
Yes, thank you for having me. So we have a website, www.brelaw.com, BRELAW.com. I also have my own website that's just drewhickeylaw.com, and that's a little more tailored to just me and what I do. So you can contact me through there. I'm on Facebook. I am on LinkedIn, and our office numbers 217-429-4296.
Awesome. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Billable Mom. At The Billable Mom, we don't pretend to have the answers, but instead have all the questions. Please find us on social media and join the conversation at The Billable Mom on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter X, Pinterest, and YouTube. We also have a Facebook group where like-minded billable moms find solidarity and provide a resource to one another. You can learn more about The Billable Mom and our picks for juggling work and motherhood at www.thebillablemom.com. You can also connect with Cari Rincker directly on social media at Cari Rincker. Until next time, let's calm the chaos 6 minutes at a time.